But yeah, I mean, following on that point, I think something that I've talked to different people about is that COVID-19 has definitely made it more of an employer's market. Um, it seems like now more than ever there are stronger and stronger candidates for every
Hmm.
single role. And so I was wondering if you've ever kind of like experienced anything with that with your interviews, um, given the fact that even like this last week I've heard about one person who said that they got probably like they felt like they were crushing interviews and they got like
Hmm.
five like basically non-offers in that the fact that they just said, oh, there are other stronger candidates, we really like
Hmm.
you, but if we ever get a head count, you wouldn't have to interview, we could just hire you, but right now, sorry, it's like a no. And I was wondering
Yikes.
if you've ever heard anything like kind of like that happening with your past kind of experience in the past months.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So one thing I'll add to that is, yeah, you hit it right on the head. So not only did the supply decrease, meaning that there's not that many jobs, not that many companies that are hiring, but
Mhm.
demand increased because of people that have been laid off, and now they're looking for new jobs.
Yep.
And what is it, like July right now? So like people are also graduating from master's programs, PhD programs, so now they're looking for jobs. Um, so you're totally right. Yeah, I think the first and only data scientist interview I failed actually was with like a hedge fund type company
Okay.
in Silicon Valley. And like I'm so into the stock market, so like I put so much like expectations on me to get this job. And the process was just so long and like tedious. 'Cause, and like since this was like early in my job search, I was like very much at the mercy of these employers. So like when the employer like contact me and said like, okay, we want to move forward, but you just have to do this take home assignment. They sent it to me on a Thursday and they're like, have it done in the next 4 days. So what that meant was I didn't have a weekend. Whereas like my weekends were important because that's when I could rest.
Yeah.
Cause like job search was like so exhausting in terms of like studying and interviewing, just being stressed out.
Yep.
I think it's like more tiring than actually working full time, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, so like weekends I needed to rest, but like I wasn't at the discretion to say like, can you just send it to me next week? Because I was like scared that they would move on to a different candidate or something.
Yeah.
And it's funny now that like I'm realizing how many red flags there was, but at the time you're not really thinking about the red flags. You're just trying to move forward, right?
Yep.
So with this company from start to finish, I took an online assessment which I did well on, and it wasn't the easiest. So I was surprised I did well on it,
Yep.
enough to pass. So I did that. They're like, okay, we want you to talk to a data scientist. So it was like a technical screening. It wasn't that difficult, I'm not gonna lie, but still, it's a technical screening. And then that's when they sent the take-home assignment, and I spent like a total of 10 to 12 hours on it because I had to research like new prediction techniques that I hadn't before, like time series modeling,
Can
which
you
isn't.
like describe loosely what it was?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I had to predict the next 4 days of gold prices. Like
Wow.
gold is a commodity,
Yeah.
like gold and silver. So yeah, and it fluctuates. So using like I think 3 months worth of data, predict the next 4 days of gold and silver prices. So I did a lot of research into time series modeling, which time series modeling isn't that popular, I don't think. So for a lot of people, they have to research it when doing it.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I also looked into RNNs slash LSTMs. But yeah, anyway, so I did a whole bunch of work into it. So they accepted it. So I was like, okay. Um, then they wanted to do a final round with me. And it was like a 3.5 hour final round, which is pretty like normal, I would say. And then throughout the interview, since it was my first data scientist interview, I was like fumbling my way through it, but like I was still getting the questions right, like even with enough help, really. And I think they were on my side too, because they were like nodding and like everything was positive
Yeah.
until it got to one question, which like they asked it like super weird. I didn't figure out like what they were asking until like a few days later, like in the shower or like you know what I'm talking about? Like
Yeah.
you wake up in the middle of the night, you're like, oh my God, like that's what they were asking. So they asked me this question. It was like about nonlinear regression, but it was just asked in a weird way. And like, I don't think I had the confidence or just like the finesse to like get to the right answer. I was more so like hung up on the way it was asked. It was just kind of confusing.
Yep.
Not to mention it wasn't my strength because, or sorry, yeah, it wasn't my strength because regression is such a broad field. Technically, like any linear algebra or just any algebraic equation can be linear regression or nonlinear regression.
Yep.
Like technically, it could be like a really weird, formula and that kind of thing. So it was really more of like a linear algebra type question, which like in order to review this concept, it might take like an hour just to learn, oh, you can actually use sigmoid for linear regression, not just logistic regression, or you
Hmm.
can use all these other different types of equations. So it's just like a matter of knowing what's out there. And when they asked me that, I just didn't really equate the two things.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I didn't do well in it. And then from that moment on, like the entire mood of the room just changed. Like they doubted everything I said after that, like even
Oh,
if it was
wow.
like simple things. Yeah, and like they were like no longer like rooting for me, it felt like. And so it was at that moment that I felt like I failed it. And yeah, I was right. And um they said they're supposed to get back to me like the next day or two. They didn't. I had to wait like a week, and then I asked them, and then like yeah, immediately they're like, oh yeah, we thought about it, and we're not giving you an offer. And yeah, the reason why that experience stuck with me so much is because like I felt just so like dragged through the mud, like as I mentioned, there was like what, 4 rounds, and or yeah, 4 rounds or just 4 stages. And like yeah, to get hung up on one question and then not fail, I was like, wow, employers can be pretty ruthless.
Yep.
So at that moment, I got kind of like maybe bitter or something, but just more so like more. I started treating it more like a business, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the one thing that we don't realize is that like it's a kind of like a relationship almost like a recruiter is talking to you, like different people are like basically commenting with you, and then right when you don't meet, I guess, the hiring bar, then it becomes just the relationship is ended. It's like a ghosting like almost immediately
Yeah.
in some respect in terms of the fact that it's also super difficult, right? Because like a lot of these companies have these like hiring bars where it's like every single interview you have to pass, right? So if one person says no, then the whole company has to say no. And I think when you model that out in like a probability formula, like that's just absolutely ridiculous, right? Like if you have a 90% chance of passing 5 interviews, that's still less than 1/3 of a chance of just getting the job because you need to pass all 5 of them. And I think like something like that is just kind of crazy and something that you're right. Like getting that first experience probably gave you the then like chance of being able to then like think about it differently and thinking about
Hmm.
more like kind of like a business and more in that kind of like structured format. I wouldn't say like jaded because that's like not really probably like the right frame, but more like you just realize you kind of maybe just woke up a little bit more, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.